Hello, this is Christian. Welcome to episode 2 of the Vehicles of the World series. In this video, we're going to create the classes for our objects. And so this is the shell that we're going to use. And so let's go and look at the assignments again. I asked you to create 4 classes, one for the vehicle. This is the super class. It's going to have these fields and these methods. And this is what they should do. All right, you can read about it and see what they should do. And you can kind of, add things to this if you want to, like when you start engine, what should happen, right? If the engine's already on, then put a appropriate message. If, for example, if the speed is well, the car is running, maybe you can't start engine, right? Or when you have no fuel level is 0, you can't really start an engine. Things like that, right? Those little features can be added in here just to make it a little bit more exciting, more entertaining. But again, you're not required to do that. But I'm going to try to do some of those in here so you can see how it works in PHP and also on the browser. Okay. And then we also have 3 classes down here. These are the child classes: car, plane, boat, and they all extend the vehicle class. And I'll ask you to do one override, okay, just one for the boat class. And so all the other classes, the objects can show the same information. And the reason why I chose boat is because boat, when you measure the speed, is usually measured in knots and then not in miles per hour, I guess. So we just make a little simple changes in there to make it a little more unique, and also to get you, acquainted with method overrides and stuff in classes. Okay, so let's go and create our classes. Right, so back in here, I'm pretty much done for now with these, and I'll just close this for now. And so let's go to the classes folder and create 3 classes. As you can see, you can use a PHP class to create that automatically, which is nice. So I'm going to use that, and I'll just call my class called the vehicle class is, I don't want to call it vehicle because I already have a file called vehicle, right? So it's confusing. Kind of bad on my part for naming like that, but unless you change it to index, then you can put vehicle here. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to call this the base class, okay? Usually the name of the class is a camel case, so you capitalize that, but the file name doesn't have to be. So I can put file name as a lowercase b here, okay? So base class and then so on. So just click OK. And here we go. We have the base class, and then we have the other one. Maybe I should call it vehicle here, really. Not base class. Yeah, I should call it vehicle. I mean, the file is called base, but it's the vehicle class. So this is the parent class. I'll put a note here. Parent class. And then I need to create other classes as well. This is the car class. Again, put a lower c for the file name. And just click OK. Extends, you can put it here if you want. You can say extend the vehicle class. So you don't have to type it in there. Oops. Okay, and then OK. You see that it adds that for you automatically. You don't have to do that, which is kind of nice. So this is the child class. I'll do 2 more, right? One more for the boat. And then again, the vehicle class. And boat for the file name. And then one more for the plane. Okay, so I have my 3 child classes and my base class. So let's deal with the base class first. So these will be your fields or properties. And the first one we want to put here is a private vehicle type. We'll leave that blank. The next one is the engine state. Okay. Forgot my $sign. Too many languages. The engine state, this will be an on and off state, but I'll use true and false. Okay. The Boolean type. The next one here will be the fuel. This will be a I guess using an integer type, and it will be measured in percentage. Okay, measured in percentage. So we show percentage of level of fuel. The next one here is the speed. This is also an integer, and measure is well, this one here is it's different, right? Measured in mph or ph or knots, depending on the object type. If it's a boat, it will be in knots, and the other cars and planes will be in miles per hour, I guess. Okay, so those are the 4 properties required. And when you deal with this kind of project, like when you accelerate, what happens to the speed, right? Speed's going to increase. So each time when I step on acceleration, then I'm going to increase the speed by a certain number of value. And as you go, also your fuel level starts to decrease, right? So you don't want to manually do that every time. So it's kind of logical to put something like this here. I just put something like fuel. I don't know how to use this. I'm just going to put a private variable here. I'll put explanation on the right side. So we have a something like that. You have something like maybe call it delta fuel. This we use to measure the decrement or incremental value, right? Every time when you accelerate, I'll just do that. When you accelerate, I'm going to decrease my fuel level by a certain percentage, okay? And then I have another one for the private delta speed. By the way, if you are a game developer, this is kind of common in game development. The speed of something is delta something, right? So this is same thing. Speeding, yeah, up and down. So decremental, incremental value. Okay, you can set a default value. Okay, so let's just say those are all my fields for now, and then I'm going to need a constructor. This is my constructor. Function underscore constructor. Okay, and then my constructor is going to take all these properties to reset these values. Okay, so when I create my car object, I'm going to pass those data in, my plane, my boat, and so on, right? So I'm going to do that, and so I need to put all those inside here, just in that order. Vehicle type, the same name. Oops. The engine, and actually, when you do this, you could make it so that when you create an object, because it's possible that I can instantiate a vehicle object with no data. When that happens, then you can do a default value, something like this. What is the default value for this type? I don't know, maybe I put unknown here, okay? So unknown, because you cannot overload constructors or functions in PHP. It's not possible. I would say not possible maybe, but it's very difficult to do that because of the different data types. Okay, I mean of the nature of the loosely tagged language, because engines, they can be anything. Unlike Java, where you can set the default data type, is strictly to that type, so you can have a different type of constructor. But PHP, that's not really likely, so you can provide the default values in here like this. So here in the engine state would be again on and off. So I put here false. It's off. And then I have the next one would be the fuel level we'll just go with 100%, and speed will be at 0 when we're starting. And then the delta fuel, let's just say I put 1 here, okay, 1 notch. And also for the speed is also 1 notch. This is the default for whatever that object is. Unknown. A bicycle maybe, I don't know. But bicycle doesn't need fuel. So okay, so we got those data, and then we can set those. But before we do that, let's go and create the setters and getters for all of these. I'm going to need all of these here to get the data back and forth. All right. So the shortcut is really you can do a set and get function like this. You can say get, for example, set vehicle type, and then you put here a type, something like that, right? And then you set your vehicle in here. Actually, you should say function. Okay, and then you say this. My fingers don't work today. This vehicle type equals this type. Okay, like that. That's this is your setter, right? I'm setting. So you can do this way, or a shortcut is, of course, most IDEs give you this because it's so common. Just to right-click on it and then generate, and then just click the getters and setters and just select all of them. You can do a control or shift click, select all of these, and just say OK. And then there we go. All these are created for you by default, and they are good to go, right? You can modify whatever you need to do here. So just make sure everything looks good. Yeah, so if it's not the way you want it, we can change later. So all my getters and setters are done. So now when I receive this data, I need to set to all these values. Okay, so instead of doing all in here, I'm going to create another function called init. And this init also take these same values, but without the default data, of course. Okay, so we're not going to put the default data here for this one this time, because I'm going to pass to it this data. So we move that, and then here I'm going to call this function. I'll just copy because it's a lot of typing, and I'll call it in here, init. And actually, there we go. So I pass all this data to my init function, and it will initialize it in here. So here I just do this set vehicle type, pass in the vehicle type. Okay, and then this set engine, and then engine state. This set fuel, oops, come on, and then fuel. And then this set speed, and then speed. This set delta fuel, delta fuel. And then finally this set delta speed, delta speed. Okay, so I initialize my object to whatever this is. If I don't supply any of these parameters, this is the default, right? So my program doesn't crash. Okay, so I got that. Then I need to go ahead and create the other functions. So let's go down here. And I could put a just a comment. Very common to do that here. So if you go and put here a comment using the documentation comment, so the slash ** enter, okay, you will see that PHP Storm automatically fill this for you. You can go ahead and describe what each of these parameters doing, okay, but I'm not going to do here. You can just do that, and also give you an explanation what this function is. So in this case, it's just a constructor, so we can just leave that as is. Then here will be something similar. You can see this is the initialization. I just put a message in here, initialize object. Maybe not object, but data. That's all. Okay. Then the next one here is the function to start engine. So I'm not going to take any parameters because all the values are in here. It's just a function to do something, right? So I can say maybe the comment will be just start engine. So when I start the engine, what do? I want to check to see if the fuel is not empty, right? If the fuel is empty, then I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to say you can't, no fuel. something like that. So you can say if the this dash get fuel, if that is less than or equal to 0, right? If it's no more fuel, then you can say echo no fuel cannot start engine, something like that, right? And then you can just return, and then you stop here. You hit the return, it will skip the next, the rest of the code. Okay, I'm not returning anything here, just return, then I'm done. It's like exit. Otherwise, if there are fuel, you can check for the engine state, right? If the engine state is running, so you can say if this engine get engine state. If this is true, that means it's true. Then put a message saying engine is already on or run on, so you don't start, right? Else, put here echo engine is on. Okay. Okay, so you see a little this if and else here. I just want to show you this. You can do it this way, very common also. But I do want to show you another way with the return statement you see here. Okay, another technique of writing code differently is if you don't use this if and else, you can use return statements here. So for example, this one here, of course, either this branch or that branch, right? So that means one of these has to occur. Okay, so this one here may or may not occur. This may or may not, but in this case, either this or that guaranteed. So when you do it this way, you can do something like this. So this line can be rewritten to something like this. Again, use the return. And then here, I just put that as the default here. Okay, so this is a default. I'm just showing you a design pattern because when you return something, execution stops here, right? If this is true, do that and then exit. If this is true, do that, exit. So you never reach down here. And if you return here, these will never run. If both of these are false, then this is the default, the catch all, right? That means it won't be turned on. Okay? So just different techniques in coding. So that's for my start engine. And then the next will be the opposite, the stop engine. For this will be kind of similar. Public function stop engine. So what I need to do here, just put here again just another comment, stop engine. Kind of similar, right? Similar situation. If the engine speed or the car speed of the vehicle speed is 0, then you don't do anything, right? So if this get speed is less than or equal to 0, then you can echo again, vehicle is, let's see, when you stop the engine, no, we stop the engine, right? So when the car is in motion, right, car is in motion, so here will be like greater than 0. When the car is still in motion, I put a note here so you can forget. If vehicle is currently in motion, something like that, then do not turn off engine. I mean, hopefully that doesn't work. Imagine if you turn off your engine while the car is running on the highway, that'd be catastrophe, right? So engine is, the vehicle is still in motion, can't turn off engine. Okay, so you put that message there. And then again, return, right? And then the next one here, if that should not be the case, then again we check for the engine state. So if this engine get engine state, if it's on, then you can say turn on engine, or you can use the default. If it's not on, right? If it's not on, then echo. You can say engine is off. Yeah, you can say engine is off. Else, and then again, you can put that return. And then down here is the default would be engine is already off. So it's the opposite of this. You can put this one here or down here, it doesn't matter. You just have to make sure this is the correct path. So when I stop the engine, you cannot stop the engine while the car is in while the vehicle is in motion. Okay. What else? If the engine is not on, if it's off, then yeah, engine is off. And also we want to make sure the speed is off, right? So it's a we want to reset the speed. This speed will be set the speed. I'm going to set the speed to 0. So if you turn off, the speed will be set to 0, and also the engine state should be set to 0 off. Yeah, set engine state to off. So actually up here I forgot to set the engine to on. When it start, then engine is on. I have to turn that on. I have to say this set engine state is true. Okay. Here will be like turn on engine. So I have to set that here so I know that it's being turned on. Okay, so I think that's what I was missing. Okay, so we turn that off, and then we say it's off, and we also set the speed to 0. Right, so that's for the turn off engine. Then the next one is for let you accelerate, I guess, right? So you can say public function accelerate. So what do we do here? Accelerate the vehicle by a notch. So each time when we call this function, we're going to increase the delta, the speed by a delta, and also when I accelerate, I'm going to consume gas or fuel by delta as well. That's the thing I want to do here. Okay, so when we accelerate, what happens? If you think about a car, right? If the engine is not on, then it doesn't work, right? So you can check for the engine state. So you can say if at this engine state, if the engine, I can get the variable directly, but I want to use the get function instead. If the engine state is off, meaning put a not in front. If it's off, then we want to say, please turn on the engine first, something like that, right? So we can start, and then again return here. Then if that's not the case, then what do? We check for the fuel. Can we accelerate? If there's no gas, then you can't really accelerate, so that's not the option. If the get fuel, if the get fuel is equal to 0 or more, or less, right? If it's less than 0 or more than 0, either way. So let's say if it's more than 0, that means we have fuel, right? If vehicle has fuel, then what do? When we accelerate, then we're going to change this fuel level. We're going to set the fuel. I'm going to increase and decrease the fuel level. Okay, so I want to do it. I'll just do this. So fuel will be decreased, right? Decreased by this delta, this fuel, this delta fuel. Okay, you just basically, this means this minus the delta, and then set that to the fuel. Okay, and then when accelerate also increases speed. So this speed will be set to plus this delta speed. So I increase my speed by a notch and also decrease my fuel by a notch. That's what I'm trying to do here. And then we'll put a message here like accelerating, I don't know, increasing speed, and you can add more information if you want. That's the case, right? And then you can again return or else, doesn't matter. And then this part here, if no fuel, right? The else part. Then you can say if it's no fuel, then or if it's less than 0, right? So we can set the fuel to 0, because when you do the increment, or when you decrease the decrement, it may not be equal 0. It may be a negative number, right? So let's say I have 3 left. If I decrease it by 5 each time, they're gonna have a minus a -2, and then a -2 doesn't make sense because when you get a -2, you want to set to 0, force it to set to 0. Okay, and same thing with speed. So the speed will be set to 0 as well. And then I also want to, when I'm out of fuel, well, the engine gets turned off, right? Set engine state to off. You force it to be off, and then you can echo the statement saying, run out of fuel. Sorry, right? So again, this is a default. So again, I'm using this way. You can put if and else, that's fine. And if it doesn't work later, we can always come back and modify. So that's my acceleration. All right, and then we have one more. This is for the brake. So braking the vehicle. I don't know. And that makes sense or not. I'm not saying like you want to, break down the car, but just for braking. And so brake here, as you can see, it's kind of it's not a really good idea to use it because it could be a keyword. Okay. I use it for now, but usually it's not a good idea to use it because it's a keyword. And so let's just put here a different name. I use braking, okay? I know it doesn't make sense here, but because brake is a keyword for a different, maybe a different version. I don't remember which one, but it's a keyword, so you want to use that. And at the end again, in my sound I put a brake. You can still use it. It would still work, but I just realized that that's not a good idea. So braking. And then we're going to check the engine state again, right? If the engine is already off, then brake doesn't really do anything. So you can say if not, this get engine state. If engine state is false, engine is off. Okay. Then you can put a message, something like braking engine is off, so the user knows. And I'll put else here. And then else, well, actually, yeah, I have a few. So what are the use cases, right? The engine is off. we check for the speed. If the speed is 0, I mean, if the car is not moving, then the braking is same thing, right? It doesn't really have any effect. But we do want to show those information here. Okay, so again, I will just use that. So without having to put if, else, if, else, if. So here I put a message here. If vehicle will not brake, return. So I put here if vehicle is not moving, right? So we can say if the get speed is less than or equal to 0. If that's the case, then we just say vehicle is already stopped or something. But we'll put the brake in the front as well. Well, that's okay. And again, return, right? And then finally down here, I guess one more would be if those cases are not true, then we can, what do we do? Brake. Then we'll do here, we set the speed. I'm going to decrease the speed by a notch. So by the delta speed. Okay, we'll decrease the speed. And then we decrease again. So when you keep decreasing the speed, if the current speed is at 2, and if I decrease it by 5, I'm going to get a negative number, right? So you don't want to keep a negative number. So after you do that, the decrement to all the speed, you can check to see if it's negative or not. If it's so, then you force it to be 0, right? So I can do here if the that get speed is less than or equal to 0 or less than 0. If it's 0, you don't really, it doesn't matter. If it's less than 0, if it's negative, then we're going to set the speed. We're going to force it to be 0. That's all we're doing here, right? And then you can put here at the very bottom echo braking and then reducing speed. So we know, okay? So reducing speed. Come on. All right. I think that's our braking. Again, I'm not requiring you to do all this stuff. If you just put braking, just say braking, that's good enough. Okay. But I do want to have fun with this one, so let's do it. And then last but not least is the function to show information. So public function show info. And this one here just show the state of the vehicle. Here we'll put a comment here. Just say which is 2 stars. I want to be consistent. Prints the vehicle information. Okay, so that's for that one. And so here I'm just going to do something really simple. Echo, put a paragraph. Here would be the vehicle type, and I'm just going to append that with so we get this get vehicle type, and then I'll end that with a paragraph. I'll just duplicate this a few times. Okay, this will be the vehicle, the engine state, and the get engine state. We'll see if this works. Okay, I'm kind of a little bit doubt. Yeah, I'm not sure about this one here. I want to make sure it works, so let's do it this way to guarantee it works. We're just going to append it. Okay, so get vehicle type. This would be the fuel level. And then this is the current speed. Okay, so get speed. This is get fuel. All right, so I guess that's all for my information about the car. And you want to put the measurement for the fuel. I want that to be a percentage. And then the current speed, default will be mph. And so for the car and the plane will be mph. For the boat, we'll say knots. So that's the override. So something's wrong here. Okay. And just for readability, just put a white space here so you can, it's not too confusing. All right. Okay, so that's my show information function. And so this is my base class. As you can see, it took a long time to do this. But that's my base class. So most of the logic are here. So now all we have to do is in the other class, it's quite simple. Here, the car is the same. So I'm gonna, when I create my car, I need to have the constructor. So have here public function and then the constructor. What it does, you can see here, is that PHP Storm is very nice. It provides all that for you automatically already, so you don't have to type it because it knows that is what you're going to be doing. Okay, you need to set all your default here, and then pass those information to the parent constructor. So for the car, for example, it's not going to be a 1, and you can set different values for your car. So a car, maybe the default fuel might be something like what? Maybe I'll call it 5. When I increase my speed, fuel will be dropped by 5 every time. My speed will also maybe plus or minus 5. Okay, so the default would be the same here. So the car, you can put a default car instead of unknown, which, I mean, the type will be a car, of course. Okay, so that's the default type. And the engine state will be the same as this. You have to pass all these through to make it work because the constructor has all of these. Again, this is not you cannot overload constructor in PHP. So however many the fields are, you have to provide exactly the same. If you don't, you miss it. Then if you miss one, then it's not going to be correct because your data will be matched based on from left to right, right? But that's it for this one. As you can see, everything is all done because all the functions are the same inside the parent class. So I think that's it for this one. And you can, I'm using this here. You can have, because doing this way, you cannot change the value here. I mean, you can, but because it's in the parent class. What I'm saying is that you can use a different variable up here as well for the speed and delta and so on. But we can just do it like that. It's fine. So that's for that. The boat will be kind of similar. So here I have public function, constructor, and bam, it's all there. The type would be a boat. And I just changed the speed here, the delta fuel. Let's just say boat will lose maybe how many fuels. I put maybe, let's just put a lot of fuel. Put 10 instead of 5. The speed would be a knot, so maybe not 5. We just put a really tiny. Okay, 2 knots per acceleration. And that's my boat. And I have to override that function. So public function show info. That's my override. As you can see, I'll override the parent. I put a little O here. It tells you that it's overriding. And we can put a note here. Just say override parents method and prints knots instead of in PH. Okay, so I'm just going to copy that from the parent class and put it down here. And we'll just change the text a little bit. Of course, I mean, there's a lot of ways to do that. You can just say, have a variable called, speed measure, speak the measurement type, and then you just change that. But in this case, I'm going to do it this way. So I'm not going to call that one there. I just rewrite everything here. And this will be just say knots. And the rest is the same. Okay. And as you can see, I can use this even though I don't have the functions here because I'm extending the vehicle class. So this will have access to both functions or content or data inside the boat class. If it's here, if it's not visible here, then it's going to go to the parent class and get it from there. And if the parent class doesn't have it, it's going to go to the vehicle's parent class. So you can see it goes up the chain there. All right. So that's the boat, and then finally the plane. This would be kind of similar to the car. So function, constructor, and then we just change that to say plane. Okay, so yeah, it took a long time to do this, but at least I hope this kind of help you see how I set this up. Most of the logic are in the base class. So everything's good here. Now I'll stop here. I know it's been long, but in the next video we will continue on, and we're going to move on to the main page, and we'll start instantiating these objects and have them shown on the browser. So hopefully this is helpful. Any questions, please let me know.